Who will see a white Christmas this year? We're going to break down all the details for you over the next 2 weeks and go over all the probabilities going forward. Let's take a look back and take a look at the season to date snowfall totals. This is not Snowpack. This is actual what has fallen so far since the beginning of the season back in October. And you can see the graph on the bottom of the screen here. All these areas that are depicted in pink have seen well over a foot or two of snowfall. And the snow has reached as far south as New Mexico and getting into portions of the Texas Panhandle as of right now, season to date. So, hey, I appreciate each and every one of you. This channel is up to 215,000 subscribers. So I appreciate each and every one of you that follow me on a daily basis. If you hadn't subscribed so far, please do so to follow all my daily content. Let's take a look at the Snowpack. This is where we stand. This is basically where we stand as far as right now, as far as the Snowpack dating back since 2005. This is essentially about a 20-year chart. And this is in the red. This is this year, 2023 winter. You can see the trend right now. We're about a pretty good low. I mean, this is a 20-year chart. We are almost about a 20-year low where we currently stand as far as like the North American snowpack, as far as like an inch or more snow that is actually on the ground. We're basically right at about 20-year lows as of right now. If you can kind of zoom in further and take a look at that, this is all the areas that are in blue that do actually have some snow on the ground. And it's not much, folks, right? I mean, these are areas that, you know, everywhere in blue has at least an inch of snow on the ground or more. And it's mainly the mountain regions across the Intermountain West. You'd have to go up to the Dakotas, through northern portions of Minnesota, up here towards northern portions of Wisconsin. Now, we just had those recent snows into portions of the Northeast. But nonetheless, even portions of Canada really doesn't even have any snow on the ground as of right now. So let's take a look at the setup going forward. Here's that system that came off into the Northeast this weekend. Now that is safely moved out. Now all eyes will be trending out west. This is a new development that's going to be coming into fruition that's just now developing over Nevada. That's going to be continuing to gain strength, and eventually that's going to move eastbound and set up shop over portions of the Rockies into New Mexico, back into western portions of Oklahoma, and into the Texas Panhandle. It's going to be cold enough to start snowing again in places into the Rockies, back into Denver and the Colorado Springs region, and definitely be snowing in the mountain ranges of New Mexico, places like Angel Fire, up there towards Santa Fe and those areas near Tahoe's. That's going to be pretty significant snows, I think, with this particular system. Even with the blend of models, this is kind of the trend right now. So this is the placement. I would say where the placement of snow is going to fall. I wouldn't really guesstimate the amounts as of right now because this low pressure is still developing. But nonetheless, you could see some pretty significant snows in those ski resorts up there into the mountains of into New Mexico, and likely into portions of the Rockies as well. Definitely can't roll out a couple inches. It's going to fall into the Texas Panhandle. Maybe far extreme portions of West Texas could see a dusting. Places like into Lubbock could see some kind of wet snowflakes. Places into the western portions of Oklahoma and even western portions of Kansas. But what's significant and what's going to be beneficial with this system after the snow ends, it's going to be on the move on Friday into that Saturday time frame and going to be diving southeastward. So it's going to leave a pretty good swath of beneficial rains pretty much across the entire state of Texas. I mean, they could get anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rainfall with this system, as this is going to be diving southeastward during the day on Friday into the day on Saturday. And eventually by Sunday, another pretty significant low pressure center is going to be entering the Gulf of Mexico and going to be deepening down there into the Gulf, into the southern Gulf. You're likely going to be seeing some very heavy rain start to form in Florida, and the winds are going to be starting to pick up as well as this area low pressure continues to intensify. And if we take a look at the Pacific jet, if we expand the view and go out into the Pacific Ocean, I show you this because this is pretty extreme for this time of year. This is a very warm surge of Pacific air. So we're going to have a flood of warm air going to be flooding into the US as we get deeper into next week. And you can take a look at the latest Climate Prediction Center kind of highlighting that all that Pacific moisture with that zonal flow coming in. We could be looking at temperatures 15 up to 20 degrees above average in southern portions of Canada, up here into portions of the Dakotas. These temperatures are going to be well above average. The only areas that might be near normal is further south in and around that where that low pressure and where all the heavier rains could end up going to fall with that complements of that low pressure center that will be forming. And so this could be significant. We'll be watching the trends on this, but this is the latest verbiage from the Storm Prediction Center looking at their longer range. They're 5 to 7 days out, highlighting that low pressure center that will be forming in the Gulf sometime on late Saturday going into that Sunday timeframe, talking about strong support for cyclogenesis over the eastern portions of the Gulf heading into the Atlantic coast late this weekend going into that Monday timeframe. Could be significant. There's not enough guidance to show, hey, but there's at least a probability this could transform into a weak cyclogenesis and even start to bomb out. That means rapid intensification with this low pressure, meaning it could drop more than 24 millibars in just a 24-hour time span, as a low pressure could start to rapidly increase. So as it does and swings across Florida, here's your latest guidance, could be down to a 991 millibar low pressure off the southeast coast. This would bring very intense rain along the coastal areas, but also increased winds, and it also increased wave heights as well. If we look at some of the wave heights offshore, they could be approaching upwards to 50 feet, guys, if this low pressure does in fact come to fruition. So we got a lot of time to watch this, but it does appear we're getting a lot more, model congruency right now, especially on the ensembles, saying, hey, we could be looking at a pretty bona fide system as we head into late this weekend, coming up the eastern coast, going into that Monday timeframe with very large waves just offshore with possibly extensive beach erosion right along the coastal areas into portions of the Carolinas by then. If you look at now, I don't think this is going to turn into like a tropical storm or anything tropical nature, more of a hybrid type system. But there's a lot of members, guys, as this thing forms off the southeast coast. A lot of members actually call for rapid intensification with this particular system. You can see a lot of members going down into the 960 to 980 range as far as millibars. This would be rapid intensification. A lot of them keep it offshore, but there's definitely more than a half of them that try to move it inland as it gets towards into the northeast as well. And yes, the trend would be rapid intensification. Now look at these tight isobars. This would be a massive wind threat and very high rain threat, not a snow threat, because look at the red line. I showed you all that warm air coming in, right? The freeze line lifts all the way into Canada by then. This would be all rain and all wind. So the only thing right now is we don't know if how close it is going to be onshore. It can wiggle and be offshore or be onshore. But right now we're watching the trend, but this is not going to be a snow threat. It's going to be an all rain threat, but very intense rains and high winds possibly coming up into the northeast, coming into your Monday time frame. But yes, the trend on the warmer conditions with that massive jet streak coming through off the Pacific, that's going to pump in a lot of warm air over the next 10 days, those days leading up between now and so that 22nd, 23rd time frame leading up to that Christmas time frame. This is what you typically see. Now, this is the updated chart from the last 30 years when the new chart updated back in 2021. This is the data from 1991 and back in 2020, those over those 30-year time frame, where you historically see a white Christmas, where you would see, say, an inch of snow on the ground. And yes, these areas in white over that 30-year time span typically see about 100% of the time you would see at least an inch of snow on the ground for those areas in white. You'd have to go down all those areas in, say, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Those areas typically have about a 40 to 50% of the time over that 30-year period that sometimes they see a white Christmas. And obviously further south, although you can't rule it out on some years, the probability on any given year is less than 10% of possibly seeing a white Christmas within this corridor in this kind of a grayish black area from the latest update. Now let's take a look, because a white Christmas is definitely considered either you have an inch of snow on the ground or it's actually snowing. So if you followed my December update, we talked about kind of the warm period coming, and I think it gets colder as we transition into Christmas week, heading to that New Year's Eve timeframe towards that Christmas week. Now most ensembles are starting to show kind of towards that Christmas Eve timeframe that we could have another area of low pressure form right along where that kind of one is going to be now on Thursday. We could have another low forming right here towards the Texas Panhandle, possibly lifting up into Kansas and through portions of Iowa. In fact, even the longer range CFS guidance is also kind of implying the same thing right around the beginning stages of that Christmas Eve timeframe, with another area of low pressure setting up a colder rain into portions of Texas, and then heavier snows into New Mexico, back into maybe portions of the Texas Panhandle. If this does come to fruition, then that would put some particular snow to actually fall on Christmas Day within this corridor. Right now, we've got a lot of ensemble members guidance that's kind of showing that particular storm track. And then we got the longest range CFS guidance also implying this kind of that storm track that this is going to possibly come to fruition. But as far as like the ensembles, the more support is where the actual, white Christmas could actually fall, is really not that many areas, guy. It shows you where it is now, and you got all that warm air coming in. So a white Christmas this year, there might not be that many areas that actually technically get a white Christmas. You've got higher probabilities, but those extend up into Canada. But you're going to have even more snow melt over the next 2 weeks than what you've seen currently. That's what's on the ground right now, because we've got a lot of warm air coming. I still think you'll have a white Christmas up here into British Columbia regions, into the Intermountain West. The only caveat is if that storm system does actually form into the Texas Panhandle, the GFS overall ensembles is picking on it more than the EPS guidance would have that system form into the Texas Panhandle and leave a blanket of snow across Kansas, Nebraska, through Iowa, and through portions of Wisconsin. But if that doesn't happen exactly on the timing of actual Christmas Day, then yes, there's going to be even less areas that might actually see a white Christmas yet this year. So guys, I appreciate you guys following. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update. Fire protect you before and after the storm.